So just a slight delay here sorting out the steeples. For those here in the stadium, there's no athlete check-in, but you need to go to the Bankstown tent near the start-finish area about 10 to 15 minutes before your scheduled race time and pick up your hip numbers. So that's the only check-in you need to do, and then you go straight to your starting position. So we're just running slightly behind timetable here by about 10 minutes, but we should be able to catch up that time once we get this steeplechase underway. But for those here in the stadium, please make sure you get your hip numbers about 10 to 15 minutes prior to the start of your race at the Bankstown tent. Okay, so we're not too far away from a start now in the men's 3K steeple. And they're in the hands of the starter over on the far side.
Could we get a tester? Just press the signal button at the top. That was good, thank you. Do we get a flash or a smoke so the guy can start the time and the lap count, please? Yeah, there'll be a bit of smoke coming out of it. You just got to really watch the clock. Yeah, you got that. Come out of the end of the gun, barrel of the gun. No worries, we'll watch for it.
So off they go in the men's 3K steeple. Looks like we've just got two starters in the field for this one. We'll pick them up as they come around. No barriers, of course, on the first lap, and then the barriers will be put out once they come through. So we'll just make sure who we've got here. So number 2 is Daniel Peters of Camden, coached by Phil, PB of 11:07, and Richard Sarkis with number 3 on his chest there for Hooked on Running, actually the leader of Hooked on Running, running in the Masters with a PB of about 11:30. So there'll be 7 laps to go as they saw the lap board that time and the first barrier now. Just looking ahead, we've got quite a big field coming up in the mixed steeplechase with 8 ladies at the 76 height over the 2K. Rebecca Solomon will run for Sydney Athletics Academy, as will Mia Sams and Amelia Thornwaite, so the 3 from Jack McPhee's group. Georgia Phillips will run for Ride in position number 4, and Sophie Schultz of the Hills District will run in hip number 5. Grace McMahon for Trinity in 6, coached by Brad Woods. Eloise Boys for Run Crew with Gary Howard, and Deborah Drennan, the Masters athlete for UTS Norths. So that completes the field of 8 for the women's 2K steeple. And in the men's 2K race, most of these, of course, the junior boys as well as a few Masters. In the juniors, we've got Isaac Beecroft and Kobe Stewart of Hills and Trinity, respectively. Denzel Atkinson for Nara. Masato Mori and William Litchfield, both of Sydney Athletics Academy. That rounds out the juniors. Many of those boys looking for the national qualifying standard. And then we've got Nick Woodhouse of Ride in the juniors as well. And then in the Masters, Brad Sharp of UTS North, Nicholas Trenova of Hills, and Leslie Gagne of the University of New South Wales. And we've then got 5 entrants in the open women's with Allegra McGiven, Sophie Gosha, fresh off the New South Wales Junior Championships last week. Cheryl Chan, off the Opens champs, I should say, for Sophie. Cheryl Chan, the Singaporean national, running for Sydney University. In hip number 20, Olivia Civilis and Ash Gardner of Athletics Wollongong and Kembla, respectively. So quite a big field in the mixed 2 and 3K steeple. Then this field of just 2 in the open height. And on screen now, that is Daniel Peters of Camden, who would have seen 5 laps to go, I think, on the board when he just came through the line. And Richard Sarkis now of Hooked on Running, also going through with less than 2K to go now. Obviously the laps are not quite 400 metres with the water jump being on the inside. And then looking a little bit further ahead in the program, some very good depth in the 800 metres, with the men's races going all the way down to F and the women's races going down to D in the 800. So the numbers at the Milers meets keep going up every meet. About 230 entries for this event. Men's 1500 metres goes down to the E-race. And of course we've got the back-to-back A races to end the program, with the 400s going through to the 8s and the 15s. The women's 15 is going to be headlined by Abby Caldwell with some pacing from Jayla Hancock Cameron, so that could be a special performance in the making there. They should get along with it. Abby Caldwell, of course, one of the top 1500 metre runners in the country. Somewhat unlucky to miss out on the Olympic Games in 2020. Men's 1500 should be a good field as well. Drew Fryer's in there. So is Tom Davies, Richie Newell, Hamish Longworth, Aaron Parker and Joe Ryan all going around. We've had a couple of scratchings with Josh Johnson and Stefan Music. Cam Musgrove, Sam Shearer there. Oliver Knee to be going to try and break the 4-minute barrier. There's also been some changes to the 800 metre races. But for the time being, we keep going with this 3K steeple. So through the line now in the 3K steeple with 6:20 on the clock for Daniel Peters. His personal best 11:07. So he'll have had a mile to run as he came through the line there. As will Richard Sarkis here. So no change in the order here in the 3K steeple with Daniel Peters leading the way for Camden Athletics, coached by Phil Austin with a PB of 11:07. And he'll pick up the bell now, so just under 400 metres to go for Peters. And Richard Sarkis just coming into the home straight now, where he'll see the number 1 on the lap board as well. So Richard Saki's now through the bell as well. And just having a look for Peters, he's now coming up to the final water jump. So 11:07 is the personal best for Peters, which could be in a bit of jeopardy here. Just coming through 10:30 on the clock, so this should be a personal best performance for Peters. Just the one barrier left to negotiate, which he does well. And with 30 seconds on the clock now to run a PB, this is going to be a very solid personal best for Peters. 11:07 was the mark, and it's now going to be about 10:50 or so. So a big personal best of the better part of 30 seconds there for Daniel Peters of Camden Athletics. Congratulations to him and Phil Austin, his coach. Just 20, Daniel, so moving into the fully fledged open ages now. And Richard Saki's now PB of 11:30 is just going to be outside of, or seed time of 11:30, I should say. He's going to be just outside of that, but negotiating the last barrier now. And Richard Saki is the leader of Hooked on Running. Will come down and complete the field for the men's 3,000 metre steeple. Just about 11:42. So some hard work for the boys there. Still a bit of wind around at the Crest. Fortunately, the rain, which has battered the east coast of Australia this week, has stayed away today for the time being. Hopefully that remains the case. So we're just getting ready now for some of the mixed 2 and 3K steeples. So we mentioned there's a field of 8 in the junior women's event. For those watching at home, we'll just show you the start list on screen. So Rebecca Solomon in hip number 1 for Sydney Athletics Academy. Mia Sams also for Sydney Athletics Academy, and Amelia Thornwaite also with Jack McPhee's group. They're the first 3 in the mixed field. We've then got Georgia Phillips of Ride, Sophie Schultz of Hills, Grace McMahon of Trinity, Eloise Boys of Run Crew, and Deborah Drennan, Masters athlete for UTS Norths. This then the field for the boys and Masters men's 2K steeple with Isaac Beecroft. For Hills in 9, Kobe Stewart of Trinity in 10, Denzel Atkinson of Nowra in 11, Masato Mori of Sydney Athletics Academy with his teammate William Litchfield in 12 and 13. Nick Woodhouse in 14 for Ride, and then the Masters contingent of Brad Sharp, Nicholas Terranova and Leslie Gagne of Norths, Hills and the University of New South Wales respectively. And then in the open women's 3,000 metre event, we have Allegra McGiven of Randwick Botany, Sophie Gosha, fresh off the back of the state championships for Run Crew, Cheryl Chan, the Singaporean national record holder and Sydney University athlete, as well as Olivia Civilis of Athletics Wollongong and Ash Gardner of Kembla Joggers. That's the field for quite a big field of 22 across the mixed 2 and 3K steeple events. Just about 10 minutes behind program. The weather holding up pretty well for the time being, and hopefully that stays the case. Still a little bit of wind around, but that should die down. Okay, so not too far away from a start now in the mixed 2 and 3K steeple. So off they go in the mixed 2 and 3K steeple. Quite a big field getting underway. And we'll start with our focus on the women's 3 kilometre event. Quite a quick start in the pink shorts there from Allegra McGivern of Randwick Botany. She's gotten away to a quick start, and Sophie Gosher of Run Crew just in behind her. A little bit of a gap back then to Olivia Civilis and Cheryl Chan. And Kembla joggers Ash Gardner coming through as well. We'll swing around and take a look at the front of the 2 kilometre event. And a couple of the boys here getting to the front in mixed racing conditions. That's Kobe Stewart in the Trinity kit on the outside. And on his inside is Denzel Atkinson of Nowra in the black kit there. So the boys run through the first lap in about 75 seconds. And then 5 of the Sydney Athletics Academy athletes just sitting in behind them. Little gap further back to Georgia Phillips. Brad Sharp there of North and Deborah Drennan. Also got Nicholas Terranova there in the Hills white singlet. It's always a bit tricky to keep track of everyone in these mixed 2 and 3K events. Have a look at the PBs here for Sophie Gosher and Allegra McGivern, just so they pick up one of the 2K athletes there. So McGivern with a PB of 11.03, set at the Junior Championships back only a week ago at SOPAC. And Sophie's personal best of 11.07, so only about 4 seconds between two girls at the front. Sophie now running as a fully fledged open athlete at 21 years of age. Allegra still eligible in the under 18 category, I think. Ash Gardner there on screen. Also her first season as a fully fledged open athlete, PB of 12.42. Set at the Open Championships a couple of weeks ago. You can see the Sydney Athletics Academy athletes there, part of Jack McPhee's group. Just coming on screen is Amelia Thornwaite. And in behind him is young Nick Woodhouse of Ryde, coached by his dad Matt. Lots of PBs set at the juniors last weekend. Nick's PB of 7.40 set there. So was Isaac Beecroft's of 6.27 and Daniel Atkinson's of 6.52. So, as is often the case, the juniors continuing to develop quite quickly. Brad Sharp there on screen, running with a couple of the youngsters. All the Milers races, of course, in all-comers conditions with all the ages running together. And having a look back at the front now, the battle between McGivern and Sophie Gosha, Ramwick and Run Crew. McGivern coached by, I guess that's mum or dad, Sam. Cheryl Chan on screen with a PB of 11.07 as well. Set at the Australian Championships. Also the Singaporean national record. And a few of these juniors all running together for Nowra Sydney Athletics Academy. So we've got Grace McMahon and Rebecca Solomon on the screen there, Eloise Boys for Run Crew. We'll have a look back at the lead battle in the women's event with McGivern and Sophie Gosha just starting to fall about 10 or 15 metres off the back now. So McGivern running very strongly at the front, does have that PB about 4 seconds faster than Gosha. And this is Kobe Stewart coming down to take out the boys 2K race in about, lap to go, I should say, I think. I think that's a lap to go for Kobe. But Kobe really putting the afterburners on, almost looked like a sprint finish there. Coming on the screen now is Mia Sams of Athletics Academy, as well as young Nick Woodhouse of Ryde. We'll get back then to Georgia Phillips, also of Ryde, as we watch Brad Sharp go over the water jump. And McGivern now just starting to open up that lead a little bit more to Sophie Gosha. It's probably out to 25 metres or so now. So I don't think we'll be too far away from seeing Kobe Stewart. Here he comes into the straight now. Personal best of 6.47 with 6.24 on the clock. So this could be personal best territory for Kobe Stewart as well. He's ticking through 6.31. He'll have to get the hammer down, but 6.47 is the mark we're looking for. And I think he'll do enough, Kobe Stewart, to set a personal best. He does so, about 6.42. Personal best for the youngster from Trinity. And a quick finish in behind him as well from Daniel Atkinson, who is just outside of his PB by about 1 or 2 seconds, I'd say. Some more finishers coming in behind now. That's Marcia Matto, just outside his PB as well. Rebecca Solomon, I suspect, may have actually set a PB there. Nick Woodhouse now coming home along with Mia Sams. And that's Rides Georgia Phillips coming in 7:29. That should be a PB, I think, for Georgia Phillips. And 7:34 for Amelia Thornwaite. It's about 9 seconds or so outside of her personal best. Brad Sharp coming down to take out the Masters event. Seed time of 7:58. He's going to go under that. So well done to Brad. And the race continuing with McGivern and Gosha as another quick finisher. 7:59 for Grace McMahon. 6:59 I should say. Yeah, 7:59, pardon me. So that's a personal best for McMahon as well, shaving 6 seconds or so off her PB set just last week at the Junior Championship. So good run from Grace McMahon. Looking back to the front of the women's field, that's the gap on screen there, probably 60 or 70 metres now from McGivern to Gosha. And you need to come back to the start-finish line to pick up Athletics Wollongong's Olivia Civilis, just running on the front of Cheryl Chan with a lead of 5 or 10 metres or so. And a little gap further back now, just straight for Ash Gardner, coached by Paul McHale. A lot of recent PBs for these athletes. Civilis set her PB back at the Milers, the second Milers meet of the series in January, 11:44, and Ash Gardner setting her PB in February at the State Open Championships of 12:42. Deborah Drennan here now coming down to the line to finish it off for UTS North's seed time of 10:20, goes miles under that, 9:22. Well done to Deb Drennan. And Allegra McGivern picking up the bell here at 9:28. So this might be personal best territory for McGivern if she can keep this going. Sophie Gosha coming through to pick up the bell now as well in about 9:46 or thereabouts. But let's keep a look on Allegra McGivern, as this could be a very impressive run for the Randwick athlete. So Allegra McGivern now approaches the last water jump and comfortably clears that. 10:27 on the clock, so it'll be quite close for her. But Allegra McGivern now coming into the straight, navigates the last hurdle. It's going to come down and take out the women's 3,000 steeplechase here. This is a very good time from McGivern. 11:03 her PB, not anymore. 10:55, shaves 6 seconds off from just a week ago. And Sophie Gosha for Run Crew coming through as well. Just checking the World Junior qualifier, so 10:36 the World Junior qualifier. So just about 20 seconds or so outside of that for McGivern, but still time to go for her at just 17. Here's the next finisher in the women's event, Athletics Wollongong, about 11:45. That's Olivia Civilis, right around her PB. And Cheryl Chan now coming down to the line for Sydney University in about 11:58, pardon me. Leslie Gagne for the University of New South Wales. Also coming down to finish in the Masters. And we'll tick through about 12:18. A good finish here from Ash Gardner as well for Kembla. 12:28 or thereabouts, so that's a PB for Gardner as well, taking about 14 seconds off her PB set only a couple of weeks ago at the Open Championships, so great run from Ash. And I think that'll round out the field for our mixed steeplechase. Just getting some official results from earlier in that men's 3K steeple. So Daniel Peters' confirmation of his win for Camden in 10:51. And Richard Sarki's second in 11:41 for Hooked on Running. So just looking ahead now, we'll clear the steeples off the track. It's the last time we'll need any barriers on the track. So we'll get in next to the men's B 400 metre race. Still about just 10 minutes or so behind timetable. So we'll try and pick that up. And then we'll be into the 800s and the 15s for the graded races before we close out the night with the A races in the 4s, the 8s and the 15s. So just a reminder for those in the stadium, you need to go down to the Bankstown tent about 10 or 15 minutes before your race and pick up your hip numbers, but that's the only check-in you need to do. Otherwise, it's just your responsibility to be at the start area on time, provided you've got your hip numbers. And we've got some results now officially for the 2K steeplechase. So Rebecca Solomon, confirmation of her win in 7:06 for the ladies 2,000 metre steeple. Mia Sams, confirmation of her second place in 7:17, and Georgia Phillips, third for ride in 7:26. In the boys 2K steeple, Kobe Stewart did indeed get his PB at 6:42 even. Denzel Atkinson for Nowra, second in 6:53. And Masato Mori of Sydney Athletics Academy in 7:05 was third over the line. And in the Open Women's, confirmation of Allegra McGivens' personal best of 8 seconds in 10:55, lowering her mark of 11:03 from just a couple of weeks ago, from just a week ago. And Sophie Gosha second over the line in 11:16, and Olivia Sevillas for Athletics Wollongong third in 11:45. Those are the official results for the mixed steeple. And we're getting ready now for the men's 400 metre B race. Have a look at the start list while they get themselves sorted out. So Marco Venturino goes in lane number 2 for Illawong Reesby. In lane number 3 is Maximilius Konstanov of the Nepean Districts. 4 has Lachlan Harkness of Campbelltown Collegians. Nick Long runs in 5 for Winston Hills Athletics. And Nicholas McNally for Hills rounds out the field in lane number 6. Okay, so just about right for a start in the men's 400 metre hurdle B race. So off they go in the men's 400 metre B from the inside out. Venturino, Kostananov, Harkness, Long and McNally. And Long it is who's the quickest away of them for Winston Hills in lane number 5, PB 55.41. Coming up on the inside is Illawong's Marco Venturino, but he's got a pretty even stagger with Konstantinov and Campbelltown's Harkness on their outside. They're just starting to even up now as they go into the back straight, and in fact it's Illawong's Venturino who's hit the front now, picking up the ground on the fast starting Nick Long. And Venturino will lead them into the straight. Good battle going on for second. Nepean District's Konstantinov is going the best of them at the moment, leading in this race for second, but no one's going to get Venturino at the front of the field. And Venturino will come down and take out men's 400 metre B race just in front of Campbelltown's Lachlan Harkness. And Nick Long of Winston Hills just on his outside, beating home Konstantinov. And Nick McNally, the youngster, just 12 years old, rounds out the field for Hills. So we'll clear the blocks off and get ready for the start of our graded 800 metre races. So quite a lot of depth in the 800 metre racing tonight, with the men's going all the way down to the F race and the women's going down to the D. And this is the start list on screen for the 800 metre F race. Milton Stepanovsky of Kembla Joggers will go in position number 1. Zane Graham of Bankstown in 2. Koji Howard also of Run Crew in lane number 3. Gavin Dybel of Nowra in 4. Zach Tiedemann of Katoomba Districts in lane number 5. Akira Howard of Run Crew in 6. Lawrence Damasi of Camden in 7. And Cameron Baxter of Nowra rounds out the field in lane number 8 for the first of, 6 800 metre races here tonight in the men's. Okay, so not too far away from a start now in the first of our graded 800 metre races. This is men's F race. As we said, 8 in it from the inside out. Stepanovsky, Graham, Howard, Dybell, Tideman, Howard, Damasi and Baxter. So off they go in the F race. The men's 800 looks to be a full field. All comers racing, so they'll be well spread out. It looks to be quite a fast starting young Zach Tideman, 13-year-old from Katoomba District in that light blue kit. He's going to come around the outside, but Kembla joggers Milton Stepanovsky will be the quickest up the back straight for the first time, and will run through the 200 metres in about 30 seconds or so. So pretty quick going for a men's F race. Little gap back then to the Nowra athlete Gavin Dybell. And just coming around, pardon me, that's not Gavin Dybell, it's Cameron Baxter, the shorter figure, the 13-year-old, and Dybell, the taller figure in the Nowra kit, sits 6th in the run. But settling into second position is Lawrence Damasi of Camden, the Masters athlete, and young Zane Graham for Run Crew sitting in 3rd position. A little bit of a gap back then to Cameron Baxter for Nowra, but they go through in about 66 seconds after a very quick 30-second first 200. And all the field through in about 75, so they're pretty strung out, as is often the case in the graded races. And a bit of a challenge going on at the front of the field now between Stepanovsky of Kembla with a PB of 226 and the much more experienced Camden athlete Lawrence Damasi. Bit of an age gap between these two. All comers conditions, 2:15 the PB for Damasi, coached by Rob Marks. Set at the Masters Championships a few years ago. And Damasi now going to get up under the shoulder of Milton Stepanovsky and challenge him for the lead and go past with 150 to run. So Lawrence Damasi of Campbelltown opening up a gap of about 3 or 4 metres to Milton Stepanovsky as they swing into the straight with 100 to run, 2:02 on the clock. And Damasi going to try and hang on. Stepanovsky going to try and come back at him. Look of determination on his face, but Damasi too good for him. Just outside his PB in about 2:17 or so. Stepanovsky in second. Little gap back then to Cameron Baxter of Nowra, 2:21. He's run a PB, Baxter. Zane Graham, 2:27. PB also runs under and breaks his PB. So the PB's tumbling here. Gavin Dybell over the line in front of Tideman. And then young Koji Howard comes in to round out the field. But 3 or 4 PBs in that field by the looks of it. Some good running from the juniors in particular, but the experienced Damasi taking the win. Looking ahead now to the men's 800 metre E-race. Have a look at the start list there on screen. So Charles Neat of Ramwick Botany Harriers, coached by Jeremy Roff in lane number 1. Patrick McMahon, the first of 2 Trinity athletes with Keelan Stefanidis in lane numbers 2 and 3. Shea Casillas of Westfields in 4. Hamish Duggan of Knox Grammar, coached by Matt Fowler in lane number 5. Shui Radajak of Sutherland Districts, coached by Jacinta Doyle in lane number 6. Ken Wilson of Athletics East in 7, coached by Peter Good. And Leif Ingerwerson of Balmain Athletics, coached by Danny Andrus in lane number 8 for the men's 800 metre E-race. So it looks like we've had a few pull out of this men's 800 metre e-race. Only the 3 in it on the outside, so it's Radishak of Sutherland Districts, I think that is. The new Sutherland singlet, and then on his outside is Leif Ingerwersen of Balmain, and Athletics East Ken Wilson. So only the 3 in this field. I'm not sure what's happened to the other 5 that were on the start list. The weather might have scared a few away, but from Balmain it's Leif Ingerwersen who's hit the front of the field just ahead of Ken Wilson of Athletics East. And we've got an additional athlete in hip number 9 who's not on my start list. But off they come down to the 200 metre mark now. Hayden Ellis, I think that is, of Bankstown in hip number 9. But through the bell, and Leif Ingerwersen of Bankstown, of Balmain, sits on the front of the field, just picking up a gap of about 5 metres or so to Ken Wilson. Again, all these graded races run in all-comers conditions, with the juniors, the opens and the masters all running together. And sitting in third is young Ellis Hayden of Bankstown. So about 10 metres covers the 3 of them as they run through the 200. But no change in the running order, with Ingerwersen of Balmain, the 13-year-old, coached by Denny Andrews, PB of 2:18 he's got. Just ticking through 2 minutes on the clock now. And Ingerwersen leads Ken Wilson into the straight, and Ellis Hayden in behind him. And Ingerwersen will come and take out the men's 800 metre e-race with about 2:20 or thereabouts on the clock. Wilson in second, and Hayden for the home club Bankstown in third. Just getting some official results through. So Marco Venturino, confirmation of his win in the 400B of 54.34. Lachlan Harkness in second, 55.06. And Nick Long in third in 55.43. And Lawrence Damassi taking out the men's 800 metre F race for Camden in 2:18.03. Milton Stepanovsky second for Kembla in 2:19.54. And Cameron Baxter for Nowra in 2:22.82. Keep rolling through the start lists here. So this will be the men's 800 metre D race, and we'll run through it quickly. So Ethan Littlewood for Campbelltown Collegians in lane number 1, Joshua Lubke of Trinity in 2, Evan Robotham of Ramwick in 3, Toby Dybel of Nowra in 4, Jed Mayer of Sydney Striders in 5, Harrison Ferns of Hills District in 6, Andrew Tran of Sydney Pacific in 7, and Darren Purcell, a regular at these meets for Athletics East, in lane number 8. That's the field for the men's 800 metre race. So just the one scratching with no lane number 6 there. Harrison Ferns comes out of the field, but otherwise a full contingent here in the men's 800 metre D race. Very deep 800 metre running here tonight. And it looks like a fast starting Ethan Littlewood for Campbelltown Collegians will lead them up the back straight for the first time. There's a couple of athletes look to come over on him. Toby Dybel of Nowra and Ramwick's Evan Robotham sitting in behind them. They'll go through the 200 in about 32 seconds or so, so a bit more reserved than that first F race, which slowed down a lot after that. And Dybel now goes to the front for Nowra in hip number 4. Sitting in behind him is the fast starting Littlewood from Campbelltown Collegians. And then coming up behind them is Jed Maher of Sydney Striders. And then one out, one back is Evan Robotham for Ramwick Botany, getting a sit about 4th on the rail now. And then Trinity has Joshua Lubke sitting in behind them. They pick up the bell in about 63 seconds or so. So good running here in the men's D race Still a single file, but 3 main contenders into the front of the field. The fast starting Littlewood, who led them through the first 200, now happy to run almost 3 wide to get around into second position. But Jed Mayer was the one who really put himself into a commanding position as they head up the back straight for the last time. And the Sydney Striders, Mayer will lead them up the back straight. Darren Purcell now coming with a big run for Athletics East up the back straight, the Masters athlete. And he'll go around the shoulder of Mayer as they hit the 200 to go in about 1:39 or so. So Purcell leading the event now with Littlewood sitting in behind him, the quickest starter. Then Mayer, who led with the 300 to go. And then the youngster from Randwick Botany, Ethan Robertham, sitting in behind them in fourth. But Darren Purcell leads them into the straight. The early starter, Littlewood, goes up to try and challenge him. Robertham trying to come at them as well for Randwick, and he picks up Mayer. But Darren Purcell, too good for them in the men's 800B. Wins it in 2:10, 2:11. Littlewood in second, then Robertham, then Mayer. Then a little gap back to Dyball. Then came Trinity's Joshua Lubke, and Andrew Tran of Sydney Pacific will round out a high-quality men's 800-metre D race. We'll pick up some more results if we're able to. So the men's 800-metre E race, Leif Ingwersen confirmation of his win in 2:21.31. Ken Wilson second for East in 2:23, and Ellis Hayden of Bankstown in 2:25. Have a look at the start list now for the first of our women's events. It's the women's 800-metre D race. Ruby McPhillips for Kembla in lane number 2. Sarah Hussey for Sydney Striders in 3. Ella Dyball of Nowra in 4. Amelia Reid of Randwick Botany in 5. Ella Hooley of Sydney Athletics Academy in 6. Sienna Novak and Fang Ling Su round out the field, both for Randwick Botany Harriers in lanes 7 and 8, respectively.
Start pony.
So off they go in the first of our women's 800-metre races for the evening, the women's 800-metre D. And it's a good field with a series of fast starters here. So Ruby McPhillips for Kembla, certainly the quickest of them away on the inside of the track, and goes up to lead them up the back straight for the first time. I think that's Amelia Reid sitting there in second for Randwick Botany, and Fangling Su, also of RBH, getting over to pick up the rail now and run third as they run through the 200 in about 32 seconds or so. Gap then of about 10 metres back to the athletics athlete of Ella Dyball. And that gap starting to get bigger and bigger. Just sitting in behind her is Ella Hooley of Sydney Athletics Academy. And Sydney Striders Sarah Hussey brings up the back as they run through with 500 metres to run. McPhillips has given up that big lead and just come back to them a little bit with the Randwick pair of Reid and Sue sitting in behind them. And they're going to be 3 wide as they come up to pick up the bell with about 65 seconds on the clock. And they'll go through in about 69 with Sue in front, just sitting on the front of the fast starting McPhillips, and Amelia Reid, in behind them as well. Sydney Athletics Academy's Ella Hooley's picked up the positioning now on Sarah Hussey, and that has dropped Ella Dyball back to the back of the field. But back at the front with 300 to run, it's Sue sitting on the front of her club mate Amelia Reid of RBH, and the early leader Ruby McPhillips goes up to the shoulder now of Reid and tries to get into second position, but Sue's too good for them out the front at the moment with a gap of about 20 or 30 metres as they go through 200 metres to run in about 1:48. Seed time of 2:28 for Sue coming into this, and with 150 to run, that may be in jeopardy. So out the front of the women's 800D race is Fangling Sue of Randwick Botany Harriers, the famous middle distance club. And with 100 to run, there's 2:05 on the clock. The early starter, Ruby McPhillips, coming into second for Kembla Joggers, and Amelia Reid of RBH getting up on her shoulder. So the real race for second, but the main race is for Sue against the clock. And that 2:28 seed time is going to get comfortably taken care of. 2:22 for Sue to take out the women's 800 metre D. And McPhillips will hang on and be good enough to run 2:28 and a PB for Ruby McPhillips in second. Just getting in front of Amelia Reid, who's also run a PB. Ella Hooley, Jack McPhee's group next over the line. And now we're watching Ella Dybel complete the field for now. So another 2 or 3 personal bests in that field, demonstrating that there's pretty good conditions out here tonight. We've seen plenty of PBs going. And that women's 800 metre D race, no exception. I'm going to try and keep powering through these a little bit just to get back on schedule. The next race on the track will be the men's 800 metre C race. We'll just bring you the results of the D race. No, we won't. Okay. So we'll have a look at this start list for the men's 800 metre C race. And Tom Partland will line up in lane number 1 for the King's School. William Zakis of Katoomba in 2. James Costello for Athletics East in lane number 3. McKeely Kesby of Kembla in 4. Jerome Etteredge of Illawong in 5. Lachlan Harkness of Campbelltown runs in lane number 6. Joseph Boyd of Delta in lane 7. And Dominic McGrath rounds out the field for the men's 800 metre C race in lane number 8. So for the men's 800 metre C, just the one scratching of Partland from Kings on the inside, but William Zakis very quickly away for Katoomba in that light blue kit, and also on the far outside, Dominic McGrath for RBH going to power around and may even cross to lead as they head up the back straight for the first time. So Dominic McGrath sitting on the front of William Zakis. They are the two clearly out front as they run through the 200 metres in about 27 seconds or so. So they're really kicking along at the front with McGrath on the front with a PB of 2:02. So well under that schedule at the moment. You don't see too many negative splits in these races. Kembla Joggers has Michaeli Kesby in third, leading not something that you call a chase pack at the moment because there's a gap of about 15 metres or so. Sitting in behind him is Illawong's Jerome Etteridge, and Delta's Joseph Boyd is tucked in on the shoulder behind Kesby. But at the front of the field, 57, 58 or so through the first lap, with McGrath leading this. The real race going on in behind them. James Costello tucked up in there for Athletics East. Just gets around the shoulder now of Joseph Boyd and puts himself up onto the shoulder of Etteridge, trying to promote his way up to the back of Kesby for Kembla. But at the front of the field, McGrath still in front of Zakis, and actually opening the gap up a little bit now. About another 5 metres or so he's put into him, and he's run about a 61 lap there, so it has slowed from the first 200, but through 200 to run at about 129 or so, and with a PB of 2:02, that may still be on here for Dominic McGrath, coached by Jeremy Roth. That PB not set too long ago, the first meet of the Milers Series back in December on this track, so he likes running quick here. 147 on the clock as he comes into the straight. Hasn't put away Zakis just yet. Zakis trying to come back at him. McGrath lifting, looking for that PB of 2:02. It's on for him. And the Jeremy Roth athlete in Randwick Botany going to hit the line, and I reckon just get it. Looked about 2:01 unofficial. Got the better of Zakis. Kesby lifted late to take the third position from Costello. And a good battle there between Etteridge and Joseph Boyd at the back end of the field. But the eyes are at the front, and I suspect that Dominic McGrath has picked up a personal best there in the men's 800 metre C race. Do you have a winning time there, Tony? So confirmation there for McGrath, 2:01.83 the official winning time, takes 0.6 of a second off his personal best. So PB's continuing to tumble here at the Crest as we move on to the women's 800 metre C race. Adelaide Williams will run in lane number 2 for Sydney Striders, Sophie Helene for Run Crew in 3, Larissa Grimer for Camden in 4, and Nicole Cohen of RBH in lane number 5, Jessica Burke of Run Crew in 6, and the Sydney Athletics Academy pair of Madison Ross and Eliza Williams will round out the field in lanes number 7 and 8. And it looks like a full contingent here ready to go in the women's 800 metre C race. So one out here with Larissa Grimer just coming out. But off they go in the women's 800 metre C race. And just trying to pick up hip number one there. I'm not sure what's happened there, but it is hip number 1 from Sydney Athletics Academy. I haven't got on my list here, but has shot to the front of the field. She's just got Nicole Cohen of Randwick Botany sitting on her outside. A lot of the Sydney Athletics Academy athletes in this field through the first 200 in about 33 seconds or so. So they're ticking along pretty well from this 800 metre C race. Cole Cohen now just takes a sit back on the rail, and she'll be one back, plenty of cover as they run through 500 to run. And it'll be Eliza Williams on the outside of her teammate for Sydney Athletics Academy as they run through the bell. They pick it up in about 78 seconds or thereabouts. Cole Cohen now trying to get up onto the shoulder of the SAA athlete. Just sitting back there with a gap to Eliza Williams, who's running in 3rd. And just sitting in behind them as well is Madison Ross of Sydney Athletics Academy. Got to go a little bit further back in the field to find Adelaide Williams of Striders. And she's running with the Run Crew pair of Sophie Helene and Jessica Burke. But up the back straight for the last time, it's still Sydney Athletics Academy in front of Cole Cohen. And they're going to go through with 200 metres to run in about 1:46 or thereabouts. So good race at the front here. They've opened up a gap of about 20 metres or so onto the rest of the field. Bit of a challenge now going on in behind them with Madison Ross, I think that is, of Sydney Athletics Academy, just having a good battle with her club mate, Eliza Williams. But into the straight now. It's a good battle at the front here. Cole Cohen is coming at her and trying to get her. Trying to lift now for RBH Cole Cohen. They're duking it out here with only about 10 to go, but SAR I think will just hold on and beat Cole Cohen. Little gap back then to Ross and Williams, and a fast finishing Adelaide Williams behind Eliza, running with Sophie Helene as well. But good running there in the women's 800 metre C race. Sorry, mate, go again. 223.90 there, the winning time. Do you know who that was? Because she wasn't on any of my lists. Okay, so just working out some start list issues there, but moving on now to the men's 800 metre B race. This should be a cracker. We'll run through the start list quite quickly. And in lane number 1, Edward Purebrick of the Scots College, Hayden Brown and Paul Raptis going 2 and 3 for Bankstown. Cooper Barrett of Nowra in lane number 4. And Benjamin Crow of Randwick Botany in lane 5. William Dybel of Nowra in 6. Kobe Drummond of Kringle Wagga in 7. And Brett Halls rounds out the field of 8 for Run Crew on the outside. So off they go in the men's 800 metre B race. This always a cracker at the Milers. And the Bankstown pair getting out pretty quickly. Brown and Raptis, and Pubrick up on the inside as well for Scots. And he'll lead them up the back straight. The Randwick man trying to cross over the back there, Ben Crow. And he will cross and lead them up the back straight. A bit of a tussle going on there in the centre of the track. That's Kobe Drummond just getting up into third as they go through the 200 in about 27 seconds or so. And coming around the home for the first time now, it's Crow of Randwick just sitting on the front of Purbrick. Then a little bit of a gap back to Brett Halls of Run Crew, who's happy to go 3 wide. Drummond wants to get off the rail as well. Coming up from the ACT into the outside, running all the way in lane 2. Happy to pick up the back of Halls as they go through the bell in about 58 seconds or so. Halls now moving up to the front for Run Crew, trying to get onto the shoulder of Crow. And Purbrick happy to just sit back on the rail there, get plenty of cover, knowing that the runs should come for him down the back straight. Hall's just starting to fade off the front two a little bit through 73 seconds with 200 to go. Hall's just slipping back a little bit as Purbrick tries to get up onto the shoulder of Crow, who did most of the lead early in the race. Purbrick now to the front of the field for Scots. Crow sitting in behind him, then comes Halls. Then comes the ACT's Kobe Drummond, 1 out, 1 back. And sitting in there is Hayden Brown for Bankstown, 5th back on the rail. But at the front now, it's Edward Purbrick of Scots sitting on front. Here comes the run now from Kobe Drummond from the ACT. Drummond up to the shoulder of Purbrick. Then a little gap back to Crow. Hayden Brown lurking for Bankstown. Hall's just starting to fade off the back. Brown has to go very wide. Drummond in the lead. Purbrick's trying to come at him. They all are, but none of them are going to get him. And it's a 1:57 or thereabouts for Kobe Drummond. That's a personal best for him. Wind almost 2 seconds, 1 to 2 seconds off his time from the state juniors last week. PBs are going everywhere at the Crest here tonight. Time, have you got it? But a smart tactical run for Kobe Drummond from the ACT. Sat in the bulk of the field for most of the first lap and really made his run with 150 to go. Timed it beautifully. We've got some official results coming through now. So Darren Purcell, confirmation of his win in the men's 800D race of 2:11, ahead of Ethan Littlewood, 2:12, and Evan Robotham in 2:13. In the women's 800D race, Fang Ling Su of Randwick Botany, 2:22.90. Ruby McPhillips had that PB for Kembla in 2:28.79, and Amelia Reid for Randwick, 2:29.26. In the men's 800 metre C race, Dominic McGrath with the win for Randwick Botany in 2:01.83. William Zakis in second, 2:02.60, and Michaeli Keesby for Kembla in 2:08.79. And in the women's 800 metre C race, Laura Hutton of Sydney Athletics Academy, 2:23.90. Anna Cohen, Randwick Botany, 2:23.97, and Madison Ross, third over the line, 2:26.39. And confirmation there of Kobe Drummond's win in 1:58.71. So taking almost a second off his PB from the state juniors last week. Ahead of Benjamin Crow for Randwick Botany in 1:59.96. And just having a look at that. And that's another PB as well. So almost a second and a half taken off of Ben Crow for Randwick Botany. And Ed Purbrick in 2:13 over the line in third. We'll get ready now for the women's 800 metre B race. And we'll have a look at the start list with Laura Hathorn of Sydney Athletics Academy to go in lane number 1. Rowena Wasowska of Sutherland in 2. Amelia Williams and Jasmine Pugh, both of Run Crew, in 3 and 4. Isabella Much of Westfields in lane number 5. Marbell Dukes of Run Crew in 6. And Madison Ross of Sydney Athletics Academy rounds out the field of 7 on the outside. Start list for the women's 800 metre B race. So off they go in the women's 800 metre B race. Bit of a slimmed down field here with some promotions to the A race going a little bit later. But in lane number 3, it's Amelia Williams of Run Crew who's going to the front of the field. And sitting all the way on the outside of her is Isabella Much of Westfield, so just taking a position in behind there. So run up to the 200 and it looks like the Run Crew treble here of Williams, Pugh and Dukes through the 200 in about 33, 34 seconds or so. And coming up into the straight for the first time, it will be Mabel Dukes of Run Crew, just getting a lead there of about 2 or 3 metres to her teammate Jasmine Pugh. And sitting there with the upside down 3 is Amelia Williams. And Isabella Much of Westfield's just sitting 4th in the run there. Through the bell now in about 67 seconds or so. And Dukes comfortably on the front of this field with about 10 metres or so. Jasmine Pugh sitting in 2nd, but not able to close that gap at all at the moment. Amelia Williams is the 3rd of 3 Run Crew athletes sitting in the field as they run through the 300, and Isabella Much of Westfield's just starting to fall off the back a bit. But nobody at the moment able to head. Mabel Dukes. And she's heading up the back straight. Going to hit the 200 metre mark in about 1:45 or so. So going well. The gap now just starting to close up a bit to Jasmine Pugh. And she's going to try and pick up the gap now. Closing right up onto a teammate. And with 120 to go, will range up onto the shoulder. Amelia Williams doesn't appear to be able to go with them at the moment. But it's Pugh and Dukes as they come into the straight. Dukes still with a lead. Has done all the work out the front, trying to make every post a winner. Pugh trying to come at her. Dukes able to lift, though, and find something. Do enough to hold off Pugh. And Mabel Dukes picks up the win ahead of Pugh in about 2:21 or thereabouts. That might be another PB as well. And Amelia Williams there coming over the line in 3rd. And Isabella Much rounds out the field for Westfields in position number 4. So just having a look at some of the results as they come through. I think we confirmed the men's 800 metre B race with Kobe Drummond's 158.71. Benjamin Crowe in second with 159.96. And third place was Edward Purbrick of Scots in 2 flat 13. So the starters will head over to the 1500 metre start now. We'll just check in with our timetable for those playing along at home. Moving now to the graded 1500 metre races. The first one, we're still 5 or 6 minutes behind schedule, but the men's 1500 metre E will be first off at 7:32. Well, obviously that's not going to happen. A couple of minutes late. And then we've moved into the graded 1500 metre races, and they'll be followed by the A, 400, 800 and 1500 metre races. So we'll take a look at our next start list. The first of the graded 1500 metres will be the men's E-race. And in position number 1, we'll have Ethan Howard of Randwick Botany. Keith Bateman of Athletics East in position number 2. Owen Dixon for Sydney Athletics Academy in 3. Owen Keneally of Run Crew in 4. Shay Casillas of Westfields in 5. Henry Stewart of St Ignatius College Riverview in 6. And Andon Landy of the Scots College will round out the field for the E-race in position number 7. So just getting themselves sorted out over on the far side.
Ready for start. Ready to start, Tony? That's correct. E-race. Positions 3 to 5 are DNS. Okay, I'm ready.
So off they go in the men's 1500 metre D race. A couple of DNSs here with Casillas and Dixon, I think it is, coming out of the field. And as you'd expect, in the lower graded races, the field's starting to spread out already. It's the Scots College athlete, Aidan Landy, with a PB of 4:48, shooting straight to the front of the field, 16-year-old. And sitting in behind them is the Randwick athlete, young Ethan Howard, in position in hip number 1. Owen Keneally, then of Run Crew, coached by Benny Saint with a PB of 5:05, sitting in behind them in 3rd, and then getting a lovely little trail in behind him is young Henry Stewart of St Ignatius College Riverview, but coached by Jack McBee. And then a little gap back then to the Masters athlete Keith Bateman, who goes around in position number 2. The barefoot in the 1500 for Bateman. Through the first 400 is Aidan Landy of the Scots College. Just get our camera to focus there. So Landy up the back for the second time, runs a third of the way through the race distance, and with about 83 seconds on the clock. And this is where most of the racing is going on at the moment. The battle for second, with the Randwick youngster Ethan Howard, just 12 years old, leading that race. He's just on the front of Owen Keneally from Run Crew and young Henry Stewart from Riverview. So they run through the 600 now. And Keith Bateman, the Masters athlete, hanging on well to these youngsters, just a gap of about 10 metres or so. He is off the back of this middle pack, but 2 minutes on the clock as Landy comes through to lead the men's E-race in the 1500. Young Ethan Howard just starting to open a little bit of a gap up in this middle pack, probably about 6 or 7 metres back to young Owen Keneally. And Henry Stewart now just gets up around the shoulder of Keneally to get on his bike and get after Howard. And Keith Bateman as well, also joining up to the back of this track, back of this group. And now in fact goes past Keneally of Run Crew, so Bateman coming into the race nicely. It's not unlike a couple of the youngsters to get a bit excited early. And the barefoot Bateman runs through the 900 metre mark. And coming around to the 1,000 now, starting to pick off some of these youngsters. So he's got Keneally, and now he's picked up Henry Stewart, and he's starting to get onto the shoulder of young Ethan Howard, and he'll do that. So the Master showing them how it's done as they run through the 1,000 metres in about 3:15. And the long-time leader, Aidan Landy, for Scots, is going to take the bell with about 3:26 on the clock. May not be beyond a PB here, 4:48 the mark. Bateman now in second with a PB of 4:12, although I suspect that was a little while ago. Yeah, the Sacramento World Masters in 2011. Keith Bateman's PB. And he's having a good battle there with the youngster Ethan Howard. Without giving too much away, there's a gap of about 50 years between these two. So Bateman and Howard having a good battle up the back straight between the Masters athlete and the junior. And they might be pulling Landy in here. Landy's going to have to get on his bike if he wants to stay at the front of this field with 200 to run, 4:10 on the clock. And Landy's starting to tighten up a bit. I wonder if the Master, Bateman, might be giving the youngsters a bit of a lesson here. 150 to run, and Bateman is going to get up to the shoulder of Landy and go past him. So the barefoot Bateman, with 110 to run, leads the men's 1500 metre E-race. Landy in behind him. Then Ethan Howard, the youngster for Randwick, trying to get around the shoulder of the Scotsman. But barefoot Bateman is going to be too good for them. 1500 metres. The Master has taught the apprentices a lesson. 4:48. Bateman beats them. Landy, then Howard. Too good for them. A fast finishing Henry Stewart. And Owen Keneally comes over the line to round out the E-race in a great show of all-comers style racing. So we'll have a quick run through this start list in a race that couldn't possibly live up to that. The men's 1500D in 1, Lachlan Wheeler of Sutherland, in 2, Jed Mayer of Sydney Striders, in 3, Lincoln Judge of Run Crew. Daniel Simpson goes in 4 for Trinity. Rod Simpson for Sutherland in 5. Leif Ingwerson of Balmain in 6. Rory Reid of Randwick Botany in 7. Hamish Duggan, Knox Grammar in 8. Benjamin Long of Westfields in 9. And Ewan Thompson for Sydney Athletics Academy rounds out the field in position number 10. In the hands of the starter for the men's 1500 metre D race. So off they go on the men's 1500 metre D race. And a very fast start there from the Westfields athlete. I think that's Benjamin Long getting around them. So they go through the first 100. Then RBH's might be Rory Reid there, sitting in second. And then I think there's a Knox athlete in there as well. Hamish Duggan puts himself in third. Little gap back then to the Run Crew man, Lincoln Judge. And that'll be the leading pack of 4 with a gap just starting to open to Trinity's Dan Simpson. But that's how they make themselves up as they come through the first 200. long from Reed. Then Lincoln Judge starting to promote himself on the outside of young Ingresson, I think that is, and Hamish Duggan of Knox. So 51 through the first 200. For the first 300, I should say, with Long leading them. And this leading pack of 4, not too much pace in the race. They're happy to go 2 or 3 wide, Judges all the way out in lane 2. And Randwick's Rory Reid takes them through the first 400 in about 70 seconds or thereabouts. And he'll now hit the front of the field ahead of Lincoln Judge of Run Crew. So they were happy to go wide and get to the front and control the tempo. Benjamin Long of Westfield sitting in 3rd, just ahead of Hamish Duggan of Knox. Little gap back then to Dan Simpson of Trinity. So it hasn't been crazy fast in the 500 or so. They've been happy to change the order around a little bit. They're just starting to string out a bit now with Randwick's Rory Reid just starting to inject a little bit of pace into this race. Lincoln Judge in that Run Crew singlet and the baseball cap still happy to take a bit of the work here and goes to the front, coming up to the 700 metres. And a few moves starting to come in behind now as well with Jed Mayer, who's already had a run earlier tonight, and Hamish Duggan, Fox, just putting themselves up into a bit more of a position of prominence. Leif Ingwerson, who's also had a run in the 800 metres for Balmain, also starting to advance himself up the field a little bit. Now, they went through the first 470 seconds. It slowed down a bit. They're going to go through 800 in about 226 or so. So about a 76 that time around. It slowed down a bit. Judge had taken the lead for a lot of that second lap, but now gives up the lead to Rory Reid of Randwick. And a new player joins them with Jed Marr and Ingwerson, both having run the 800 already tonight. They've put themselves into 2nd and 3rd respectively. The youngster from Trinity, Dan Simpson, just 13 years old, also starting to get up to them. And Hamish Duggan of Knox has been there or thereabouts all through the run, now finds himself 6th in the order. But still at the front of the field is Rory Reid. Jed Mayer now happy to come almost out into lane 2 to get up onto his shoulder and go past him as they go down near the bell. Ingwerson for Balmain sitting in 3rd. And they're pretty close together, this leading pack of 3, as they pick up the bell, 3:23 on the clock. And with that, Jed Marr goes to the front of the field. Rory Reid's done a lot of the work out the front, but now finds himself 2nd, but still in it as he looks to push out to the outside of Marr, get up on his shoulder and try to go past him on the turn. Ingwerson probably running the smartest of them here, happy to just sit back and take the trail. 3:43 as they go through. So about another 76, 77. Mayer having a the shoulder at Ingwerson, and Rory Reid has found himself back at the front of the field as they go through the 200 to run. Rory Reid with a PB of 4:38. That could be in a bit of jeopardy here if he gets on his bike. We've had a PB in almost every race tonight. And a quick move as well coming from the Sutherland youngster. That's a young Lockie Wheeler with a Paul B 4:33, coached by Jordan Anderson. And he might have timed his run beautifully here. Rory Reid on the front, but only a gap of about 2 or 3 metres. Lockie Wheeler's trying to come from the clouds here and take out the men's 1500D. Reid's responding and lifting. It's going to be PBs everywhere for these boys, but Rory Reid will hang on and take out the men's 400D, about 4:31. Lockie Wheeler, 4:43. They've wiped more than 10 seconds off their PBs. Ingwerson comes through for 3rd. But I suspect we've got 2 or 3 personal bests at the front of the field there in the men's 400D. Men's 1500 metre D race, I should say. It's just Just a little hold here as we just check on one of our athletes. While we're doing that, we'll have a look at the start list for the men's 1500 metre sea race. So in position 1, William Sork of the Scots College. In 2, Matt Cox doing pace duties, I think, for run crew. James Costello of Athletics East in 3. Josh Engel of Kembla in 4. Ben Woodhouse of Ryde in 5. Jack McPhee, the coach and president at Sydney Athletics Academy in 6. Darren Purcell, see if he's going around again for Athletics East. Andy Cross and Seth Healy both go for Sutherland. Harry Reid in position number 10 for Randwick Botany Harriers. Harry Helene in 11 for Run Crew. And Alexander Paris of St George District rounds out the field for the men's 1500 metre sea race. So if they go in the men's 1500 metre sea race, big field here of 12, and they're well spread out down the back straight, and the St George athlete of Alex Paris straight to the front of the field. Some of the RBH guys coming in behind him. Harry Reid, I think that is, sitting in second now, and one of the Run Crew youngsters getting in behind him as well. It might be Harry Helene, I think, getting up in behind them. Matt Cox, I think, is doing some pacing duties maybe for Harry. Just sits one out, one back on the rail, off the rail. The tall figure there for Run Crew. Then comes William Sork of Scots in that yellow vest. Seth Healy then of Sutherland on his outside as well. But it's Paris who leads them through for St George, one of the famous middle distance clubs in New South Wales, home of the great Albie Thomas. And they're going to go around to the 400 metres. Over a minute on the clock. They're going to go through with Paris leading them in about 66 seconds or thereabouts. So Paris on the front, Reid in behind him. Then Harry Helene getting a hand from Matt Cox. Then young William Sork sitting in behind them. Jack McPhee, the coach, trying to show his youngsters how it's done for Sydney Athletics Academy. 3 back on the rail, getting plenty of cover. Then there's the Ryde youngster in there, Ben Woodhouse. And you can still throw a blanket over this entire field. The back just being brought up there by the Kembla athlete, Josh Engel, and then a couple of the Sutherland guys in Andy Cross and Seth Healy. But the full field still here together through the 600. Matt Cox now finds his way to the front of the field. I understand he's doing a job. Sitting on the front of Harry Helene, his teammate. Then James Costello had a run earlier tonight for East, sitting in 3rd position. Harry Reid in there for Randwick as well. And the early leader, Paris, has found himself dropping back to about 4th or 5th. Jack McPhee now gets off the rail. And on the front of William Sork has just been shuffled back in the field as well. And in fact, a leading group of 3 starting to emerge now as they go through the 800 in about 2:17 or so off the back of a 66 first lap. So it's slowed to about a 71. Cox now sits on the front of Helene and James Costello. They've picked up a gap of about 12 or 13 metres now to Josh Engel of Kembla, who finds himself at the front of the chase pack. Seth Healy now starting to put himself into a position of a bit more prominence, and he's getting up to the front of that chase pack. But Cox still on the front of Helene and Costello, starting to string them out a bit here. He's taken them through 1,000 metres in about 2:52 or so. We'll see how long he's able to keep this going. Harry Helene's in second, and what we understand might be the effective lead of the race. Costello in third, and a gap back then of about 10 metres to Healy and Engel, and McPhee sitting in behind them with Cross and Paris, the early leader. And then comes the ride man of Ben Woodhouse. But through the bell, Matt Cox starting to get off the front a little bit here, might run it out. Lead of about 3 or 4 metres to Harry Helene or so. James Costello sitting in behind them. Is Costello able to do anything about the youngster here as they run through 1200 at about 3:26 or so? Cox has got a gap of about 5 metres to Harry Helene. Then comes James Costello. The gap behind them doesn't appear to be closing up very much. It's holding at about 13, 14 metres. Seth Healy leads it from Engel. And then comes Jack McPhee and Andy Cross. But at the front of the field, it's Matt Cox with 170 metres to run. Lead of about 10 metres to Helene. Then comes Costello. No change in the order for about 600 metres now. Cox trying to hang on. Through with 100 to go. 4 minutes ticking over on the clock. Big wave to the teammate, Helene, in behind him. The time we're looking for, 4:16 for his PB, Helene. 4:06 on the clock, Costello. Seth Healy lifting for Sutherland. Coming Costello. Helene trying to hang on. Cox is going to run him through. Probably just going to miss the PB for Helene. Healy with a huge last 400. Then Costello, then McPhee, then Cross and Engel. Then the youngster from Ride Woodhouse. Sork was prominent early but faded. Pappas did all the work the first 400. And Harry Reid was prominent early as well and will come home to finish a very solid men's 1500 metre C race. So just getting some results through now for those earlier races. The men's 1500 metre E-race, Keith Pateman giving the youngsters a lesson in 4:49.75. Aidan Landy from Scott's 4:50.62 and Ethan Howard third over the line for Randwick in 4:50.97. The men's 1500 metre D-race, Rory Reid, confirmation of his win for RBH in 4:33.18. Lockie Wheeler second for Sutherland in 4:33.90. And Jed Mayer of Striders in 4:38.27. And we'll have a look now at the start list for the women's 1500 metre B race. And a big field lining up in this one of 15. So Tessa Newitt for Bankstown, Alyssa Goodall for Sydney Athletics Academy, Claudia White for Blacktown, Sienna Colossi of Run Crew, Zara McCoy for Sydney Athletics Academy rounds out the first five. Then we've got Larissa Grimer of Campbelltown, India Bine of Athletics Wollongong, Amelia Reid of RBH, Annika Ingwerson of Balmain, Kelly Holmes of Sydney Athletics Academy, as is Anais Biassi. Ingrid Kingsmill of Sydney Striders goes inside of Gemma Dixon of Sydney Athletics Academy. Sarah Hussey also of Striders, and Holly Story rounds out the full field of 15 for Sydney Athletics Academy on the outside.
I'll read out the numbers that I've got here and see if they marry up with yours. I have 2, 11, 9, 3, 6, 8, 4, 5, 12, 1, and 10. Okay, that's pretty much what I got. I think to get 7 over the finish. Seven must have been a DNS, but I didn't hear Jill say there was DNS in that one, because I actually have got, well, I had 7.
So just for those here in the stadium, in terms of timetable, I think there was up earlier in the week. The men's 1500 metre A race is due to be the second last race of the night at 8:42, and the women's 1500 metres will be the main event at 8:50. So that's the timetable order. The men's will precede the women's at 8:42 and 8:50. We're just about to go the women's 1500 metre B race, so we're running about 5 to 6 minutes behind timetable schedule. But for those in the stadium here, please make sure you're down getting your hip numbers at the tent at the front of the field. We're just about right to go with the women's 1500 metre B race. And off they go in the 1500 B. It's a big field of 15. It looks like we've got a couple of scratchings. Certainly not 15 on that start list, and looks to be a Run Crew Sydney Athletics Academy dominated affair. One of the Sydney Striders singlets in there as well, I can see as well. But still pretty evenly together here as they run through the first 150 metres or so. And swinging into the straight for the first time, it's Tessa Newitt in hip number 1, actually of home club Bankstown. And then sitting in behind her is Ingrid Kingsmill of Sydney Striders. Little gap back then to Sienna Colossi of Ramwick, and Holly Story, also of SAA, sitting in 4th, 1 back and 1 out off the rail. Little gap back then to Kelsey Holmes. And an Ace Biassi sitting in there to round out a leading group of 6. And a little gap down to Larissa Grimmer and Alyssa Goodall of Camden and Sydney Athletics Academy respectively. So through the first 400 in about 75 seconds or thereabouts. And still a pretty even group here of 6 as they head up to the 500 metre marks, led by Tessa Newitt. Holly Story in there, the taller figure on the outside, Kingsmill of Striders. Also sitting in there, as is Sienna Colossi. And just a little bit of a gap now opening up between the front 4 and the next 2. But as they run through 500 metres, still plenty of time to go. We've seen those orders change around a bit, especially in these graded races. Alyssa Goodall finds herself in a little bit of no man's land, sitting off the back of this group, and then comes Larissa Grimer of Camden. Coming through 700 metres now with about 2:15 on the clock. No change at the front of the field. Newitt from Kingsmill. And then a little bit of a gap back to Holmes and Story. That's the leading group. They were 75 seconds through the first 400. It slowed a little bit. About an 81 there for the second lap. So it's just the pace has come out of it a little bit. Looking at some of these personal bests. So 4:57 for Tessa Newitt, coached by Onday Cale Music, the 14-year-old. And sitting in behind her is Kingsmill, part of the run crew group, with a PB of 4:49. And you can see there on screen some of the back of the field just being strung a little bit as we come down to the 1,000 metres for the leaders. So still absolutely no change to the order. Newitt from Kingsmill, happy to run together and through the 1,000 in about 3:19. Keely Holmes then in behind them, PB of 4:57. So a few of these girls under the 5-minute mark. And Holly Story is the second SAA athlete in this leading group of 4 as they head through the bell. Tessa Newitt, the shorter figure, just running inside Kingsmill, 14 and 16 years of age respectively. And 4:57 and 4:49 the PB. So Kingsmill with the quicker PB of the 2. So she's able to use that as they run through 1,200, and Kingsmill does go with 300 to go. And goes to the front of Newitt. Look to have something in hand. Let's see if Newitt's got anything to respond with as they head up the back straight. But with 200 metres to run, it's Kingsmill of Sydney Striders going through with 4:15 on the clock. Could still well be some PBs on the cards here. Kingsmill at 4:49 and Newitt at 4:57. Newitt's definitely on PB schedule here if she's able to hang on to the back of Kingsmill. Coming into the straight now with 100 metres to run. You can see how much it's spread out. Kingsmill leads with 4:38 on the clock. Newitt trying to come back at her. And a little gap back then to the Sydney Athletics Academy pair. But Kingsmill's going to be too good for them. Just out PB tempo for her. But Newitt's going to run a PB in behind her for 4:53 for the winner. And it'll be about 2 or 3 seconds off the PB for Newitt. Coming in behind them now is Holmes. Would be just outside of her PB, and then Holly Story for the Sydney Athletics Academy pair. Sienna Colossi comes through 5:11. That'll be a PB for her as well. And Alyssa Goodall now 5:19 PB for her as well of 4 or 5 seconds. Coming in behind them is Biassi, just outside of her best mark. And our final finisher will be Larissa Grimer of Camden, to close out the field for the women's 1500 metre B race, but about 4 or 5 PBs there in a fine 1500 B race. We'll keep going on to the men's 1500 and run through this start list quickly. So Sebastian Havens of Randwick Botany Harriers, coached by Drew Farr, in 1. Everett Braden of Newcastle in 2. Ben Maloney of Trinity in 3. Caleb Radajakia of Port Stephens in 4. Louis Donovan of Run Crew in 5. Oliver White and Jasper Scams-Magro both go for Sydney Athletics Academy in 6 and 7. Keelan Brian of Port Macquarie Pacers in 8. Caleb Wagner of Run Crew in 9. Corey Deneen of Sutherland in 10. Adam Brunch of Ride in 11. And Leo Morgan and Oliver Neat, both of Randwick Botany Harriers, go on the outside of the track, ready for a start in the men's 1500 metre B race. So off they go in the men's 1500 metre B race. Big field here of about 11. And a pretty quick start there from the ride athlete, Adam Brunch, just getting up on the inside as they run through the first 100 and looking to string this field out. He's got a PB of 4:01 set just under a year ago at home. A quick look at the watch as he goes through the first 200 in about 29-30 seconds. So I wonder if he's doing a bit of a pace drop here for someone. He's got a lead of about a couple of metres to Everett Braden of the Newcastle runners. And then a little gap back then to Oliver White and Caleb Ranchiaka of Port Stephens. So he's strung them out a little bit, coached by Ross Forster, and takes them through the first 400 in about 61 seconds or so. So that's some real quick running for the 1500 B race. Ranchiaka now gets himself up into 3rd place, just on the front of Oliver White. And some moves now starting to come behind them of some of these athletes that want to get on the back of this, what's turning into a bit of a train in the 1500 metre B. You can see there about 8 or 9 of them all strung out, single file, happy to be pulled along by Brunch here at the front of the field. Caleb Wagner getting in on this as well for Run Crew, just sits in behind them there. Then comes the Randwick athlete Sebastian Havens, also sitting in on the rail. Little move out now from Oliver White, who wants to get around the shoulder of Ranchiaka with 800 metres to run. A few of the other boys getting in on this act as well, with Scamps Magro and Corey Deneen also getting in on the action. So they were 61 through the first 400. It slowed a bit, as you'd expect it to, about a 67 for 2:08 through 800. But Brunch is still sitting on the front of this field and happy to pull them along. Oliver White now, the short figure for Sydney Athletics Academy, just 15. Gets in behind them. Still the Newcastle runners, man, Everett Braden in there. Although he's starting to get swallowed up a bit here as Ranchiaka gets onto his shoulder and goes around the outside of him. Caleb Wagner also in there too for Run Crew. Puts himself into 3rd in the run as they go through the 1,000 in 2:45. Oliver White still sitting pretty here on the shoulder of Brunch, who leads the race for Ride as they go through the bell. Brunch now starting to tie up a bit, and White gets on his outside. Then comes Wagner. Then comes Ranchiaka. Little gap back then there to Braden, and this leading pack of 5 appears to have got off the front. We'll see if anyone's able to go with them. They were 61, 67 through the first two, and they're going to be about 65 now through the third lap. So it's very good running for the 1500B race. Here come the moves. Everett Braden from Newcastle gets onto the front of the field. Brunch has found something and managed to respond to the youngster Oliver White, who now sits himself in third. Renciarca getting a run up on the inside, trying to put himself into that third position, and does so now from White. And then Wagner now struggling to hang on. But Everett Braden with a PB of 4:05 at the front of the field. Just 17 years old from Newcastle. PB set just a week ago at the Junior State Championships. Leads Brunch. The PB's on the cards here. Brunch did all the work early, but Braden's on the front. 4:05 the PB. That's going bye-bye. 3:55, 56, 58 as he comes over the line. Smashes his PB. Brunch did all the work to run 4:01 in second. Then Renciarca and White. Then came Brian in behind them. Wagner faded in the last 400. Then comes Havens. Then a little gap back to Mullooney and Donovan as they round out the field for the men's 1500 metre B race. But it's beautiful conditions here at the Crest tonight, and PBs are dropping everywhere we look. The race beautifully set up by Adam Brunch for ride. Did a lot of the work early, but Everett Braden was smart enough to sit there and take a good 5 or 6 seconds off a PB that he set only a week ago at the state championships. We've got some confirmation of the women's 1500 metre B race results as well. Ingrid Kingsmill for Sydney Striders with the win in 4:54.32. Tessa Newitt of Bankstown in 4:56.39 for that big personal best. Holly Story third over the line in 5:01.64. So that's the end of the 1500 metre graded races, and with that we'll be into our A races for the evening. Kicking off with the women's 400 metres. So 6 A races here with the 4s, the 8s and the 15s. And here is the start list for that women's 400 metres. Phoebe Doran of Katara South, coached by Jay Armstrong in lane number 1. Adelaide Marshall for Run Crew, coached by Gary Howard in 2. Ainsley Gamprietro of the Blue Mountains and coached by Rob Marks in 3. Isra Andrus of Essex West in 4. Grace Pomeroy of Kembla Joggers, coached by the great Ian Hatfield and Debbie Holland in lane number 5. Keely Brown of the Blue Mountains, coached by Chris Purcell in lane number 6. Then comes the Adamstown athlete Poppy Doran, who's coached by Jay Armstrong, and Elise Deep of Bankstown Athletics, coached by, I guess, David, rounds out the field for the women's 400 metre A race in lane number 8. Just have a short break in the program here while they get themselves sorted out. We'll be back with the women's 400 metre A race.
here, Coach Linz. The Woodhouses are done. Woodhouses are done. 424 for them. 68, only 1.5 seconds.
Okay, so ready to go with our main events of the night, the back-to-back 4, 8 and 1500 metre A races. First off is the women's 400 metre A. Slightly diminished field here, but in lane number 2, Adelaide Marshall for Run Crew. In lane 3, Ainsley Gampietro for Blue Mountains. Isra Andrus goes in 4 for Essex West. Keely Brown for the Blue Mountains in lane number 6, and Elise Deep rounds out the field for Bankstown on the home track in lane number 8. So off they go in the women's 400. Very evenly away. Probably the quickest of them in the centre of the track was Isra Adrist of Essex West, but also going well back on the inside is Adelaide Marshall, who's actually picking up the stagger on Adrist on her outside. And Adelaide Marshall is motoring up the back straight in the women's 400 metre A race. Gets stagger on pretty much the entire field as they go through the first 200. Elise Deep of the home club Bankstown probably going the best of the rest on the outside of the track, and Keely Brown of the Blue Mountains running strongly in the centre. But it's all about Adelaide Marshall in the middle of the track, who on the inside, who comes in with 100 metres to run with a lead of about 10 metres or so. Keely Brown the best of the rest at the moment, having a good battle with Andrist and Deep on her outside, but it's all Adelaide Marshall in the women's 400, and she comes home to take it out in convincing fashion. A dive over the line. Great finish on the outside for Deep of Bankstown. Probably just got the better of Brown from Andrist. And then Gampietro back on the inside for the Blue Mountains as well. Bit of time, Tony. Got some confirmation from the men's 1500 metre B race as well. Everett Braden of Newcastle Runners, confirmation of his win in 4:94. So PB of just over 4 seconds for him. Adam Brunch in second, did all the work early for Ride in 4:03.20. And Caleb Ranciarca of Port Stephens in 4:04.56. Having a look now to the start list for the men's 400 metre A race. And a good field here. So Aaron Jeffrey goes for UTS North, coached by John Quinn. He's got a few in this field in lane number 1. James Kerman, the World Junior representative for home club Bankstown, coached by Andrew Murphy in 2. Damien Mizzi of Sydney University, another one of the John Quinn squad in lane number 3, as is Jordan Cemento for Norths. And then comes another 4 Norths athletes with Keegan Bell, coached by Penny Gillies in 5. Timothy Sankey in 6. Oscar Piantriak for UTS Norths, coached by Mike Hurst in 7. And John McFadden, also of Norths, in lane number 8. That's the field for the men's 400 metre A race. Looks like we've just got a little gap before the start here, so I can bring you confirmation of the results from the women's 400 metre A race. Confirmation of Adelaide Marshall's win in 59.80, which I think is just outside her PB by a few tenths. Keely Brown of the Blue Mountains second in 63.27, and Elise Deep of Bankstown in 63.45. So that...
Would you be interested in the canteen?
So right now for a start in the men's 400 metre A race. So off they go in the men's 400. Kerman from the inside out reasonably well. Mizzy going also well for Sydney University, the All Whites in the centre of the track. Then comes the Norths. Quartet on the outside, and going the best of them at the moment is Sarmento on the inside in lane number 4. Already picked up the stagger on Bell on his outside, and now ranges up to Pinterick and McFadden. So Sarmento going well in the centre of the track for Norths. Probably leads them through 180 metres to run. McFadden trying to stay with him on the outside, and just starting to fade a bit now is Pinterick. But Sarmento leads them into the straight. McFadden on the far outside and Kerman back on the inside, the only dangers. Sarmento lifting here in the centre of the track. Going to try and run this out really strongly. McFadden trying to come at him on the outside as is Pinterick, but Sarmento too good for them. Pinterick will be second, then Bell, then Kerman, and then McFadden on the far outside. But Jordan Sarmento too good for them in the men's 400. $47.55, the official winning time for Jordan Sarmento. Just a second outside of his PB set at the National Championships a few years ago, so he's in very good shape going into the business end of the domestic season. So very good running there. For those in the stadium, there's still some food upstairs at the canteen and the barbecue. We're going to keep running through this main event program though. The men's 800 metres be the next event on the track, and a full field of 9 here. So Ethan Wyatt-Smith goes for the University of Western Australia Athletics Club, coached by Dick Telford in lane number 1. Rowan Laurenday of Illawong Reesby, coached by Father Paul in lane 2. Rob Dickinson has been running really well at these milers meets, coached by Lindsay Watson of the Quad Squad in 3. Max Rosen of Woden, coached by Des Proctor in 4. Corey Firminger of UTS North, coached by Penny Gearleys in 5. Riley McGowan's scratching, I believe, given the weather. Finley McPhillips of Kembla Joggers in lane number 7. Zachary Pliatskis of Trinity, coached by Paul Raptis in lane number 8. And Josh Bulch rounds out the field for the men's 800 metre A race at the Milers. So very strong field here. Plenty of PBs right around that low 150 mark. Number of them set this season. That quick 800 metre final at the ACT Championships, the side of a couple of them. And just looking at the start list, I think we're missing a couple of the ACT guys who are concerned about the weather. So I think Max Rosen comes out, as does Riley McGowan. Just a quick confirmation of results from the men's 400A. So Jordan Sarmento with the win in 47.55. Pinterick second in 48.39. Keegan Bell of Norths in 49.07. James McFadden James Kerman 49.40, and John McFadden 50.36. But they're in the hands of the starter now for the men's 800 metre A race. Perfect conditions here for middle distance running. No wind, temperature's fallen, and we're ready to go with the 4 main events of the night. Off they go in the men's 800 metre A. The 800s have been appointment viewing at the Milers all season long. This shouldn't be any exception. So Lauren Day in the inside of the track for Illawong gets to the front of Dickinson, and he'll lead them up the back straight. On the far outside is Josh Bulch of the Illawarra Blue Stars, and looks to come across and pick up an outside position there, and he will just get onto the shoulder of Dickinson. Then comes Firminger of UTS North's in behind them. Little gap back then to the Kembla athlete Finley McPhillips, and Zachary Piatskis rounds them out as they come into the straight for the first time. Lauren Day doing all the work on the front from Dickinson with Bulch in behind them. Not crazy fast at the front. They're going to go through in about 54 or thereabouts. Lauren Day doing all the work out the front, and Dickinson gets on his back. They've actually just skipped out a bit of a lead there of about 2 or 3 metres. Firminger's going to have to get around the outside of Bulch if he's going to go after them. And 100 and about 67. So Firminger trying to get onto this leading pack of 2, but the move now coming from Dickinson up the back straight, gets to the front of Lauren Day. Firminger looks the bigger danger than Lauren Day at the moment, and the red athlete, the red singlet of North's getting up to the back now of Dickinson as he goes around the shoulder of Lauren Day. 170 to run. Dickinson's got a lead of about 5 metres or so back to Firminger. Daylight back to third. Lauren Day's trying to hang on, but Bolt coming at him, and so is Kembla's McPhillips, but the race is at the front between Rob Dickinson and Corey Firminger. Firminger peels wide to try to come at him. Dickinson still trying to hang on, still heads him as they come down to the line. Firminger trying hard, but not going to get there. Dickinson too good. 152 or thereabouts. Firminger, big last 200 from Finley McPhillips to get up over the top of Lauren Day. Then came Bulch. And Trinity's Palatskis rounded out the field for the men's 100-metre A race. But a brave performance from Dickinson to hold on over that last 200 metres. Firminger came at him very hard. They'll be just outside their PBs, but not a long way out. And with no sub-150 guys in the race, that's a very impressive performance. $1:52.20. Thank you, Tony. Confirmation of the winning time for Rob Dickinson in the men's 800-metre A race. And with that, we'll move on to the women's event. Some late changes today to this field with, unfortunately, a few injury niggles from the Penny Gillies squad. But nonetheless, a very solid women's 800-metre A field lining up here tonight. In lane number 1, Giselle Enland for Sydney Athletics Academy. Aisha Stevel of Illawong Reesby for Michael Dooley runs with her teammate and squad mate in Rosalie Floyd Kerr in lane number 3. Kira Tui for Sutherland goes for Dad Gary in 4. Emily Sun of Ride, part of the Central Performance Track team of Ben Liddy in 5. Amy Bennett has been running so well on this track this season for Sutherland, coached by Paul Lauren Day in lane number 6. Ruby Madden of Run Crew runs in lane number 7. And Claudia White will round out the field for Blacktown City Athletics, coached by Brad Woods on the outside in lane number 8. So just while we're getting ready to get underway here, confirmation of the results from the men's A race. Rob Dickinson, 1:52.20. Corey Firminger, of North's 152.69, and Finley McPhillips of Kembla third over the line in 155.18. The ladies will just have a last couple of run-throughs for this A800.
Dr. Tony, lane DNS are 7 and 8, 7 and 8. 7 and 8, did not start, ready to go.
So right to go now for a start in the women's 800 metre A race.
Ready to start.
So off they go in the women's 800 metre A race, slightly slimmed down field of Enlund, Stevel, Floyd, Kerr, Tui, Sun and Bennett, but high class. And in the centre of the track, it's Kira Tui, who's the quickest away of them for Sutherland, that blue crop, and Amy Bennett, her clubmate, going to cross now on the front of Emily Sun, and Bennett going to string this field up as they head down the back straight for the first time. So Bennett, with the experience in this field, the only genuine open athlete, the rest of them juniors trying to compete at the top level. But Bennett strung them out with Emily Sun now sitting in second position, and a big gap then back to one of the Sydney Athletics Academy athletes there, which I think is Giselle Enland. And then just sitting on the front of the fast starting Kira Tui, and a little gap back then to Stevel and Floyd Kerr. But Amy Bennett doing the work on the front and goes through the bell in about 60 seconds. So it's a good pace out the front, 2:01 her PB. So some top performances there from Emily as she runs through 300 metres to run in about 1:17. So it's just slowed slightly as they head up the back straight for the last time. And Bennett with a lead of about 25 metres or so to Emily Sun. And the youngster from Ryde with a PB of 2:05 set at the Brisbane Track Classic last year is doing her best to box on to Bennett at the front of the field. So they run through the 200 to go. There's about 1:38 or so on the clock when Sun went through. But Bennett still sitting on the front with 150 to run. No change in the order. They were strung out. And Amy Bennett with 100 metres to run with a gap of about 6 or 7 metres to Emily Sun, who's boxing on well here. Some good races coming in behind with Stevel putting herself up into third ahead of Tui. But Amy Bennett, class shines through, and the open athlete reigns supreme in the women's 800A, about 2:11. Emily Sun in second. Then comes Stevel just ahead of Tui. Then comes Enland, and Floyd Kerr will round out the field in the women's 800A race. So some good racing there in the women's 800 metre A. That leaves us with the two main events of the night, the men's and the women's 1500. We'll have a look here at the start list for the men's race. And fortunately, we're right bang on schedule. So Drew Fryer goes on the inside of the track for Randwick Botany Harriers. Theo Christian of Trinity runs in position number 2. Tom Davies for the All Whites of Sydney University and Ben Liddy runs in lane number 3. Luke Levier for Woden and Des Proctor in 4. Richard Newell of Randwick Botany and Jeremy Roff's group in 5. Hamish Longworth and Ben Jagger both on the home track for Bankstown, coached by Lindsay and Ben St Lawrence respectively. Joseph Ryan for Randwick, another one of the Roffey athletes in 8. Aaron Spiesberger Parker of Bankstown, part of the Team Telford squad in 9. I understand Stefan Music is a scratching. Daniel Franken there for Norths in 11. JJ comes out as well, I think. Cameron Musgrove from the ACT in 13, and Sam Shield rounds out the field in 14. So a couple of scratchings, unfortunately, on account of the pretty extreme weather that has hammered the eastern seaboard of Australia for the last few days. And yes, we know there's some weather approaching us here, so we're going to try and get these 2 races underway as soon as possible and try and beat that weather. Now, some qualifiers to look for here. Just make sure I've got the right one. The World Junior qualifier for the men is 3:48.50. There's athletes in this field that have already got that mark, but something to keep an eye on. Theo Christian has been doing some brilliant racing for Trinity this season, as have some of the Randwick youngsters. Oliver Neat has also been added to this field, I should have announced at the outset. And he'll go on the outside. If you're watching at home, let us know who you're watching and what sort of performances you're looking for from them. The men's field just lining up there on the far side of the track, as you can see. So right to go now for a start in one of the co-main events of the night, the men's 1500 metre A race. So off they go in the men's 1500. Solid field here, a couple of scratchings as we mentioned given the weather, but hopefully we get this in before the storm that is apparently coming rolls through. The Randwick athlete Joseph Ryan, I think that is straight to the front of the field. And Tom Davies, Sydney University, gets a spot in behind him. So they're getting on with it here at the front. Ben Jagger in that baseball cap, as is customary, gets a little sit on the outside there of Richie Newell of RBH. So the Randwick boys are prominent early. And the coach, Drew Fryer, just getting a lovely sit back on the rail with plenty of cover. Another one of their club mates, young Oliver Neat, looking to break the 4-minute barrier here tonight. gets up on the outside of them, actually running in lane 2. Would do well to try and get in there a bit. He's just sitting on the outside of Hamish Longworth of Bankstown. And the run crew athlete, Sam Shield, brings up the back of the pack. So a few guys here looking at the 4-minute mark. I think Sam's another one of those. And they're happy just to sit on the back of this train that's driven by Joseph Ryan and Tom Davies of the All Whites of Sydney Uni and Ben Liddy's squad. Ben Jagger then sitting in behind them. Drew Fryer of RBH just sits on the front of Richie Newell in front of them. As they come around to the 500-metre mark now, Cameron Musgrove also up there from the ACT. Sits about 6th on the outside. And they're going along at a pretty reasonable clip here. Joseph Ryan so far has made every poster winner, has done all the work since crossing from the outside at the start of the race. Tom Davies has done not a bit of work in behind him, just sitting there with a lovely trail into the race. Ben Jagger getting a lovely sit in 3rd on the home track. Drew Fryer hasn't done a bit of work either there, sitting 4th back on the rail, and they're just starting to string out a little bit. 2:03 or thereabouts as they go through the 800 metres. So they're just over that 3:45 tempo, but only by a couple of seconds. Richie Newell now with the first real move of the race up the outside. Drew Fryer gets off the rail and wants to go with him. Gets up under the shoulder of Jagger and goes past him now. So 3 Randwick athletes in the top 4. Tom Davies of the All Whites of Sydney Uni and Ben Liddy's group. The only thing breaking up the Randwick domination of this. Musgrove in behind them. Then comes Jagger. Then a little gap back to Longworth as they run through the 1,000 metres in about 2:37 or thereabouts. Coming up to the bell, Drew Fryer now gets to the outside, wants to get the back of Davies and see if Davies can trail him into this race. Look for the sub-4 boys at the back of the as well. Hits the front now with Davies on the lead at the bell. Fryer on the outside. Then comes Ryan, who did all the work early. Richie Newell trying to make a move as well. And Musgrove completes a leading pack of 5. Jagger and Longworth lead the rest and the sub-4 attempt. But through the 1,200 and about 3:06, Tom Davies of Sydney University leads the Randwick pack in behind him, and Musgrove getting up in behind them as well from the ACT, trying to spoil the New South Wales party, as has become customary at some of these milers meets. Davies on the front. Musgrove gets up to his shoulder. Richie Newell in behind him. Then comes Fryer and Ryan starting to fade. Ryan might have something left after doing so much of the early work, but Davies leads into the straight. 100 to run. Musgrove in behind him. Richie Newell trying to get at them as well, but Davies looks like he's got it covered. Musgrove's trying to get there. Richie coming too, but Ben Liddy and the All Whites take it home. 3:48 for Davies, then Musgrove and Newell, then Ryan, Drew Fryer. Here comes Longworth and Jagger. The sub-4 boys are going to get there. Ollie Neat and Sam Shield go under the 4-minute barrier. Huge effort for the youngsters. Ollie Neat in particular, one of Roffy's boys, just 17 years old from memory. We'll wait for the official results to come through, but big running there in the men's 1,500 metre A race. Tom Davies, too good for them on the front, and takes a well-deserved win. Musgrove tried to spoil yet another New South Wales A race here for the ACT. Des Proctor's been a big supporter of these events from the nation's capital. A good run for him in second, and Richie Newell threw everything at them. But Tom Davies, too good for them. And both the youngsters getting under 4 minutes, Ollie Neat in particular. We'll swing back very quickly over to the start line for the main event of the night, the women's 1,500 metres. And Jayla Hancock-Cameron will go on the inside of the track doing pacing duties. Phoebe Evans for Kembla, coached by Ian Hatfield and Debbie Holland in 2. Kate Spencer of UTS Norths and Ben Liddy's CPT group in 3. Brooke Carson of Illawong Rosebery, coached by Jacinta Doyle in 4. Rachel McCormick of the Perth Track and Field Club in 5. Philippa Quarrell.
And do you have 12 and 13 on your list?
Philippa Quarrell of Sydney Athletics Academy in lane number 6, just as I get the scratchings. Paola Longshop of Bankstown, coached by Dennis Goodwin in 7. Abigail Nordberg of Run Crew in lane number 8. Eloise Doherty of UTS Norths and Team Telford squad in 9. Holly Campbell of Sydney University with Jeremy Roth in 10, as they have gone, notwithstanding that we weren't quite ready, but we'll go swing back and see if we can pick them up. So that clock's probably about a couple of seconds slow on screen, but off they go in the women's 1500 metres. Jayla Hancock-Cameron sits on the front of Abby Caldwell, who's our main visitor from the ACT. This could be something very special here tonight. It's the athlete who was vying for national selection last year, lines up to have another crack at a domestic season. So Caldwell, the effective leader of the race, in second, just sitting on the front of Holly Campbell, and Kate Spencer sits back on the rail for UTS North in the red, and Abby Nordberg of Run Crew sits in fifth. And as you would expect in what's going to be a quick race, this is strung out early. They're about 49 or so seconds through the first 300, and Jayla Hancock-Cameron, the Youth Olympic silver medalist, is doing the duties on the front of the field. Just won the Open 1500 metre title at the State Championships a couple of weeks ago. Caldwell in second, then comes Holly Campbell, and this leading group of three have opened up a gap even to the hugely talented Kate Spencer of Ben Liddy's group, who sits in fourth, and Abby Nordberg of Run Crew. And there is the gap of elite open running, a gap of about 25 metres or so the rest of the field, as they have been completely strung out here in the main event of the night. Jayla Hancock-Cameron at the front of the field doing the honours for Abby Caldwell and Holly Campbell. Spencer's trying to go with them, but has a gap of about 4 metres or so through the 600 in about 100 seconds or thereabouts. The World Champs qualifier is 4:04.2. So we'll see if we're looking at that at the business end of the race. But they come up with 800 metres to run. Hancock-Cameron still doing the job on the front. Caldwell in second has made the trip up from Victoria for this race. Holly Campbell of the All Whites of Sydney University sitting in third and getting a lovely, lovely trail into this race. Through the 800 metres now, and Hancock-Cameron's taken them through in about 2:10 or thereabouts. And they're heading up the back straight. Hancock-Cameron now peeling off and leaves Caldwell to it at the front of the field. Campbell in second. And so it's now a leading pack of two as they run through the 900. Gap to Spencer has stayed pretty consistent throughout the whole race, of about 5 or 6 metres or so, as we're just starting to get a few drops of rain at the crest. Hopefully we've beaten the weather. Caldwell is going to come up to the 1,000 metres mark in about 2:44 or thereabouts. So that clock on the screen a few seconds slow for those playing at home. Into the straight now with 500 to run. Campbell sits second. Hancock-Cameron looks like she's going to run it out in third. Spencer then sitting in fourth. Through the bell now, just on about 3:01. And Caldwell at the front of the field will need to close very quickly to get the World Champs qualifier, but is running very, very good at the front of the field. Has opened up the gap to about 25 metres or so now to Campbell. And Spencer now sits in third, with Hancock-Cameron having pulled out after having done the job. But it's a race of one at the front. All eyes are on the clock. It's Abby Caldwell from Victoria who's made the trip up for this race. Set up beautifully into it by Jayla Hancock-Cameron. She's got a gap of about 30 metres or so to Holly Campbell, and it's another 20 or so back to Kate Spencer. But all eyes on the clock, with about 3:45 ticking over now as she comes into the straight. All eyes on Caldwell, 100 metres to run. 3:50 or thereabouts on the clock. She might be on here. Caldwell trying to lift. Crowd trying to get behind her. Campbell's coming into the straight, but it's all about Caldwell at the front. 4:02, 4:03. Oh, very close. Might have just missed. Campbell coming up to run a very gallant second. She'll be very happy with this run. And Spencer will come home third. We'll wait for an official time. As the rest of the 4:04.79, just half a second outside the World Champs qualifier. Abby Nordberg coming over the line for Run Crew. And a huge pack here coming home. Battle of the Juniors really here. Longchamp in there as well. Phoebe Evans of Kembla. Philippa Quarrell of Sydney Athletics Academy, and Eloise Doherty on the outside. Little gap back then to Ramwick's Lucy Marquand. And Grace Pomeroy will come over the line for Kembla and round out the women's 1,500 metre A race. But take a bow, Abby Caldwell, if that's a sign of things to come this domestic season. That is a very impressive performance, just outside the World Championships qualifier by about half a second. Beautifully set up by Jayla Hancock-Cameron. We might get packed up pretty quickly because I think we've just beaten the storm. It turned out to be a night of great conditions for the middle distance running here at the fourth meet of the Sydney Milers Series. It's been a night of plenty of PBs. It's been set up beautifully for a few of those and rounded out in world-class style by Abby Caldwell. Congratulations to everyone. Thanks for supporting the meet. And we'll see you at the fifth and final meet of the 2022 New South Wales Milers Series on the 17th of March here at the Crest. Thanks, everyone, and have a good night.